Hello again, friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Monday's edition of the Formula One Fan Show Live. I am your host, Martin, at HDR Martin. You can find me on Twitter, and we thank you all for joining us. Of course, you can listen back to this podcast if you missed it live, or even if you're just catching it now, but you haven't got the full half an hour, over on any good podcasting platform servers. I will upload the audio this evening, and it should be available for you for your morning commute tomorrow. Alternatively, if you're watching this back on YouTube, thank you for watching us. And of course, you can join us every single Monday at 8 p.m. where we discuss Formula One in depth. I'm going to bring my friend and co-host, Steve Thompson, in, who, Steve, obviously this weekend had a bit of a tragic memory to remember. So do you want to talk us through that? And
unfortunately, it was the 1 year anniversary of Antoine Hubert's passing. He was unfortunately involved in a nasty crash in Formula 2 last year. Unfortunately, he obviously succumbed to his injuries last year, so it was nice to see the Formula 1 community obviously pay respects last year, and obviously this year as well, letting the race go ahead for last year, and then this year holding a minute's silence before the Grand Prix as well, gathered with a nice big portrait of him on the grid. So not just Formula 1, but obviously Formula 2 and Formula 3 and other categories as well, just remembering him because he was only 22, member of Renault's Driver Academy. Sadly, he never got the chance to get to Formula 1. He was an insanely talented young man, close friends to many of the drivers in the paddock, notably Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly. Leclerc actually won the race last year in his memory. It's just nice to see Formula 1 remember him this weekend as well and honour him and place flowers and things like that. So it's a shame. You never really expect a driver to lose their life now with how safe the sport is, but it does happen. And unfortunately, he was a young man who never got the chance to realise his dream in Formula 1. But it's nice to see everyone remember him. You said I can't hear you.
Yeah, well done, mine.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was just introducing Mr. Moles there, but he needs no introduction. Obviously, a sad weekend. You are like me a little bit, weren't aware of the driver, but leading up to this race, you've been made aware, right, Neil?
Yes. Well, the thing is, with most of the F2 drivers, until they make a big song and dance of them, you don't really know a lot about them. But as for that we had on the race build up last weekend, it showed how much he was involved with the Renault team and all the other drivers that he influenced and helped train and give them a pick me up and motivate them to get better. And like I say, without the interviews, wouldn't have known any of that really.
Likewise, somewhat. So if we have a drink, just raise it up to a man that's obviously gone before his time. And there's my Labrador also throwing something in there as well.
Yeah, it was a shame. It was I think one thing that's quite touching I found was Pierre Gasly. They interviewed him before the race yesterday because he was quite a close friend of Hubert, and he said that after he was dropped from Red Bull and sent back to Toro Rosso, one of the first messages he got was from Antoine saying, "Show them they're making a mistake and prove them wrong," which is nice. And I think Gasly is actually proving them wrong this season as well, because he is arguably one of the drivers of the year so far. He's definitely outperforming that machine he's got.
Yeah. I did see a poll about should he get another chance. Do you think that Albon's done enough to be replaced?
I don't know. I'm a little unsure about Albon. He just seems like every time he's spoken to, he sounds sad. He sounds depressed, like he knows he's not doing the job. Like he knows he's on borrowed time or something. I don't know if I'd swap Albon and Gasly again, because it seems like once you're out of Red Bull, you're out of Red Bull. You can go to AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whoever. But people have left Toro Rosso and gone on to bigger and better things. I mean, you got Carlos Sainz, he had a bit at Renault, he's doing well at McLaren, and he's signed a deal with Ferrari, which he might be regretting right now. But he's going to the biggest team in Formula One. So
the F1
Red Bull.
the F1 channel said that Red Bull did actually have the best lineup, but in the fact that they had Ricciardo and Verstappen in the same team. But
yeah, I'd agree.
The fact that didn't work out, they didn't manage it properly. Ricciardo ended up leaving, so now they've got to deal with who they've got left.
Certainly has. Right,
anyways,
shall we
on the agenda?
Get ourselves into today's episode? So we've got a nice little quiz to warm ourselves up. 5 questions, 4 questions, 2 each. Of course, a bonus question added this week, just in case you are both spot on with your knowledge. We've got the Belgium review. We had an incident there to discuss, as well as Bottas maybe not being as forceful as he needs to be, which is much of annoyance to Steve, and of course many other things. So let's kick it off with this week's the F1 quiz of the week. I think Steve went first last time, so do you want Neil to go first this week?
Yep. Yeah. You can start it.
Good evening, Ben. You're absolutely right. A very interesting race, and we'll get onto that very, very soon. So do stick around. Would love to hear your thoughts. So the first question up today is number 1. Which Argentinian racing driver dominated the first decade of Formula 1 racing?
Haven't a Scooby.
Haven't a Scooby. I can confirm it's not Haven't a Scooby. Steve, do you know?
Yep, I think so.
Just for fun, what do you think the answer is?
Fangio.
Correct. Yes. Can you tell us anything about him?
Obviously Argentinian. 1 Manuel Fangio. 5
He's
world
good,
titles.
He's good. He's good.
5 world titles. 3 or 4 on the bounce, I think he won in the 50s. Drove for various different manufacturers. I think there was Alfa Romeo was in there, Maserati, I think. Ferrari, I believe. But yeah, I mentioned a bit about him in my article about can you pick who was the best F1 driver of all time. I spoke about him a fair bit. So
you certainly did.
I didn't know he was Argentinian.
Well, you should have read Steve's fantastic article on the HDR Network.
That will teach me.
That certainly will. That's not actually a plug. That wasn't in there as a plug, but as you've worked it in there nicely, Steve.
Read my stuff.
Good work, my man. So, second question to you. How many Formula 1 World Championships did Michael Schumacher win?
Sorry, that's me, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
7.
7. Of course, it's
7.
7. Neil, which F1 racing team formed in 2007 and is based in Silverstone?
Formed in 2007.
Which F1 racing team formed in 2007 is based in Silverstone?
Well, I know the Jordan team is based in Silverstone, and they changed to Force India, so it must be Force India.
Correct. 1-1. All right, Steve, you can win this week's quiz with this question. Which Formula 1 motor race on the Baku City circuit was held for the first time in 2017? That's an easy one for you.
Azerbaijan, but for some reason in its first year, it was also called the European Grand Prix.
Yes, it was.
In Europe. But there you go.
Look at that. And the bonus question this week would have been, the first Grand Prix to take place behind the Iron Curtain was in which country? Does anybody know that answer?
No.
Oh, I'll keep that one for next week then, maybe. No, actually, no, I can't. Can I? Because you'll look it up. Oh, no, you too well. You'll look it up. I thought when I first heard the question, it would be Russia. Iron Curtain, sort of terminology you normally hear with Russia. Nope, it's Hungary.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely.
I just said Russia, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not alone in that level of thinking. So this week was the Belgium Grand Prix. Hamilton won it. Safety car was deployed. Boys, talk us through this week's race. As Ben called it, an interesting race. Do you agree?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, the surroundings are pretty. That was the only interesting thing about the race. Now, the only excitement on the race really came from, unfortunately, from an accident. As soon as Bottas failed to pass Hamilton into turn 4 or turn 5 at the end of that Kemmel straight, I knew it was going to be a Hamilton walkover. And even though Bottas sort of kept him in check, and Mercedes said, Bottas came on the radio and said, we're allowed 1 push. And Mercedes said, yes, but we're not allowed it on each other. And Bottas said, I didn't hear that. I was thinking, brilliant, here we go. Bottas is going to push. He's going to push Hamilton. We're going to get a fight, just like the old Rosberg-Hamilton days. And it never materialised.
Didn't happen, did it?
fell more and more asleep because it was awful. And like I say, unfortunately, the only excitement came from some great moves from Pierre Gasly, getting right up close to Perez, and some great passing maneuvers.
Did you see how closely Perez squeezed him to the wall?
Yeah, it would have been, even the commentators, if they'd have touched, they'd have gone flying.
Yeah.
But he kept his foot in it and he pulled it off. And it sort of cements my argument that Gasly is one of the drivers of the season so far, because he is completely destroying Kvyat as well in the same car. Another former Red Bull boy, of course. But
am I right in remembering that he started on the hard tyre and they kept him out even after the first safety car?
That's it, yeah. Perez started on softs, Gasly on hards.
Because that almost messed up his race, really. Because he had to pit under normal conditions.
Yeah, but he's such a good fight back as well. And yeah, Ben, it was a concern at the end, wasn't it? Because they had that tyre graphic come up on the screen, and it showed Hamilton's tyres are about 10%. And Hamilton came out with his usual stuff about, I don't trust these tyres, but he says that every week. No one believes him now.
No, it's almost as a ploy to try and get people to push.
Yeah, and it's almost like, maybe there'll be some excitement. Oh, no, he's still 10 seconds up the road.
Yeah.
I agree with what Ben's saying there as well. He needs to work for himself. He's got to think, look, because he's in his 30s now, so he's not a young driver by any means. He is in the best car on the grid by a long margin. It's not like they've got competitors right behind them. They're still miles off, in comparison. He needs to think, look, I'm in my 30s now. I'm probably getting closer to the end of the career than I am the start. So he needs to start taking matters into his own hands. I mean, Webber did that at Red Bull. He started fighting back with Vettel. Rosberg and Hamilton just fought for themselves.
But you're not going to get that from Bottas, are you? And that's why he's been re-signed by Mercedes, because they want what he's giving them.
I said that in my article.
Think of...
He's a nice guy. That's it. That's his problem.
Yeah, what do you think of the fact that the team ended up saying that he couldn't push Hamilton? I thought that was a bit... I know why the team says it, yeah. But it's a joke, really. Just
they know that there's not going to be much... Unless anything happens, obviously, like Ben said, if anything happens with tyres, or if there is a safety car or something, I mean, even a safety car didn't really change the course of the race. It probably made it worse. But if anything happens, at Belgium, it could start raining. They know they're not going to have much competition. And people want to see fighting. They want to see competition. You're not going to get it. Because if they're saying, Valtteri, just stick behind him, don't fight him, that'd be great, okay. They're going to have an easy time of it, but it's just such a boring thing to watch. I feel sorry for any F1 fan that's getting into it this year or the previous couple of years because, like yourself, I feel really bad for you because I remember watching Formula 1 years ago and it was you had 6 or 7 drivers who could maybe in with a shout of victory, certainly the podium.
Did you hear the interview before I think it was during qualifying on Saturday, the build-up program, and they spoke to the new owner of F1 and how the budget changes and everything that he's trying to do, get them to agree on the new Concord agreement, is to level the playing field, make it more even, make it so Mercedes aren't dominant. And the thing is, we've got a couple of seasons until that now, haven't we? With the new
2022 now. I mean, it would be great to have a more level playing field, to be come into the weekend and even just have it so you think, okay, either Mercedes or Red Bull, or if they get their act together, Ferrari can fight for this win, or at least have 6 drivers fighting for 3 places on the podium. But in 2022, with this new budget cap, you've got teams that have got new owners. It's going to benefit some more than others. So it would be nice to go into a weekend and think, all right, so maybe 2 of the places are guaranteed. But you can have like McLaren, Racing Point, Williams, Renault fighting for podiums. I mean, maybe not Williams yet, or maybe not Alfa Romeo yet. But
trying to squeak it in there, wouldn't he?
Can't keep a straight face. But, just anything. So you've got 4 or 5 or 6 different teams that can fight for a podium, and you genuinely don't know who's going to win it. So
yeah, that's true. But
I didn't hear Verstappen's comments after the race. I know on the podium, Mercedes were jumping around, lifting each other up and having a while of a time. But yeah, Verstappen just disappeared. I know he was pushing and he was sort of keeping them honest as much as he can with how much slower his car is. But was he annoyed or anything, or
I
did he
think he
just
was.
accept it for what it was?
I didn't hear his comments, or I didn't see an interview or anything, but I noticed that when they were lifting up their the team member on Bottas and Hamilton's shoulders, Verstappen had long gone. He said, "Sod this, I've had enough." And because it must be getting tiresome for him, because he knows that he is so far ahead of his teammate that he's obviously much quicker than Albon. He's quicker than the Racing Points. He's the only place he's going to really fight for or get is third. So he can start third and he can finish third unless anything extreme happens like Silverstone.
Was Racing Point a lot further off the pace than you expected?
Yeah, they were. 9th and 10th, I think they finished in the race, which is weird because I imagine they would have had a couple of podiums by now, especially Perez. I mean, Stroll, nah. But Perez, I thought he'd have had at least one podium by now.
Yeah.
Because he's a phenomenally quick driver. But what Ben's saying down there, if he wants to be a world champion, yeah, Bottas needs to just look what's happened in the past. No nice driver has won a world championship. Apart Damon Hill was a nice guy, but yeah, he won a championship. But Schumacher, Senna, they weren't nice guys. They didn't get there by playing second fiddle and saying after you into every corner. Senna took his teammate out. Schumacher tried to take Villeneuve out. That didn't work for him, but get your elbows out, Valtteri. Damon, he took Damon out as well. Just get your elbows out and fight. But he doesn't do that. It's like he just says, "Oh, okay, well, I'm second at the end of the first lap, so I might as well just stay here and
Have you seen Ben's post?
Yeah, I think you're safe there. There's not going to be no Norris shirt.
I couldn't believe how far off the pace they were.
Oh, it was awful. Like their first qualifying since 2014 that neither Ferrari has made it into the top 10, which is insane. Yep. And the second race this year where Ferrari have failed to score, they're in danger now of being jumped to 5th in the championship. They might actually slip behind Renault into 6th.
Yep. Other than Williams, it was all the Ferrari engine teams at the back.
Yeah. It was shocking when he got the Haas cars, the Alphas. Seeing the Ferrari Alphas fighting with Alpha and Haas, that's not right.
Yeah, Kimi was overtaking the Ferraris. That was brilliant.
He passed Vettel, didn't he? That was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel sorry for Vettel and Leclerc. I don't feel sorry for Ferrari because they brought it amongst themselves.
Mm.
But I feel sorry for the drivers because they just drive the machines that the team have made.
The thing that makes me laugh most of all is the big sum of money that they get handed for being Ferrari, and it just seems that they don't do anything with it.
That's it. I mean, they're not earning it right now. They think, "Oh, well, give us this massive bit of money because we're Ferrari and we've been here since day one." Okay, where are you? Well, we're almost 6th and we can't even score points right now. Why do they deserve it? I mean, yes, they've been there since day one. Yes, they're the biggest team in Formula One, no matter what Mercedes say. They are the most famous team in Formula One, and I think every Formula One driver would want to drive for them if they had a good car. But
how long do you reckon it will take for them to improve their engine?
I think 2022 is going to be their next big chance. Next year, well, this year, write it off. It's awful. Next year, you've got a different driver lineup. Just have that as a rebuilding year because that's the final year of the regulations as well. So do what you need to do to your engine. And then hopefully 2022, when the cost cap comes in and you've got different regulations, the cars are going to be drastically different. That will be the year to capitalise. The trouble is, 2022, everyone's going to be thinking the same thing. So, I don't know. It's tricky. It's going to take them a couple of years to recover.
Yep.
And they've screwed Vettel over royally. So I've got no sympathy for Ferrari right now. I do for Vettel and I do for Charles Leclerc, but not for Ferrari.
Did you hear the radio? I think it was to Leclerc this time. After he'd done his pit stop, the Ferrari team were telling him a choice of 2 different strategies they were going to do. And then Leclerc basically said, but they're completely different.
Yeah.
But we're looking into both of them. But then he doesn't know how hard to push on his tyres.
No, it's like even Ferrari don't know.
No, it's basically it's the same as Vettel did the week before, where he shot his tyres and then they told him, you've got to push now.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit late now. So
imagine that. It's like, Steph, what do you think about getting to the end on these tyres? Well, I told you that. I'm the driver. You're the strategist. I drive. You do strategy. Tell me when to push. Tell me when not to push. Don't ask me if you think I should be pushing.
Mm. So you think the car might not be ready, but the fact that their decision making, even that's not up to par. So they've got a lot to work on, really.
They need, I think I've said it before, I can't remember if I've written it down or I may have mentioned it in my last article. I know I've said it on this. They need to get a leader. Binotto is not a leader. I think Ferrari's problem is they hire Italians to run the team for the romance of being Ferrari. Because we're Ferrari, so we want Italian people running the team. But the most success they had, I think, was when they had a Frenchman and an Englishman running the team, which was Jean Todt and Ross Brawn. They need to go to that no-nonsense, no fannying around, get a leader back in. And to answer S's question, no, they won't win. They're miles off the pace. Mm-hmm. Yes, they are lucky. Very lucky there's no fans. Because if there were fans there, they would be getting so much crap.
How much later in the season is the next Italian Grand Prix? We've got a couple more, haven't we? We've got this Monza, then we've got, is it Mugello?
Oh, sorry, not Imola. Mugello, yeah.
And then we've got Imola.
Yeah, that's it. Imola's in November, so I think Mugello must be sort of late October, I think. Don't quote me on it.
So, because they're hoping towards the end of the year they're going to get some fans in. So Ferrari could still feel the heat from their fans.
For sure. And the most passionate fans in the world are Ferrari fans, and they will soon tell their team if they're underperforming. The passion they have for Ferrari is incredible. Like one of the Grand Prix I want to go to is Italy, just to experience that.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
But they certainly won't be winning at Monza. I think it will be fortunate if they get at least one car into Q3 again, because the car is just so slow in a straight line, and it's virtually all straight lines. Angry F1 fans down there. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm an angry F1 fan right now with how the season's going, to be honest. Actually, with how the past sort of 5 or 6 years have gone. It's good seeing an angry F1 fan because it will usually just end up in people shouting at each other who they think is the best driver. So it's either going to be Hamilton, Schumacher, Senna, and that's basically what it ends up in, no matter what discussion you start in Formula One. But yeah, very polite. Very polite. There's never shouting or swearing. It's just strongly worded arguments and letters.
Another bit I noticed in the race, the old Racing Point with Perez. He started on the soft tyres, but they never bothered pitting him at the same time everyone else did under the safety car.
Yeah,
and then he obviously had to pit, and then he ended up going to the back and had to waste time coming through. Another interesting decision.
I mean, fair play to him. He fought his way back through, and he was fortunate to score a point. But he shouldn't be scoring a point. That car is good. No. It's a rip off of last year's Mercedes, but it's good. And he should be fighting up in the top 6, and he would have been if it had not been for that really strange strategy call. It's almost like they've employed someone from Ferrari to come and work for them to just pick strategy calls out of a hat. So I said, what we're going to do? We're going to put you on soft tyres on the front and hard tyres on the rear. We'll just see how that goes. We'll just throw you out there. But
that's an illegal manoeuvre.
Well, yeah. No, I think the only excitement of the race actually yesterday came from that crash with Russell and Giovinazzi. And it was such a shame for Russell because obviously, I'm a big George fan, and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I saw the mess afterwards, and I thought that the back of Giovinazzi's car was smashed and the front of Russell's was. And I thought, how has George done it now? And then obviously the replay was shown, and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It was
and the fact that the wheel came off the tether.
Yeah, I've never seen that for a long time. Well, I haven't seen it for a long time, but we've seen it now. We saw it at Silverstone when Albon hit Magnussen into the wall. His wheel came off the tether, and now we've seen it for Giovinazzi. And I saw the onboard from Russell's car, and I could see this wheel bouncing across and thinking, there's no way he's avoiding that, because if he steers left, it's going to hit him on the back of the car. If he goes right, he's going into Giovinazzi's car anyway. So it was such a shame because it was another good qualifying performance from him. And I think, given different luck, and if he hadn't made a couple of errors, he'd have got a point. He could have scraped
in the points. Yeah.
I mean, he maybe not in Belgium, but certainly in Austria, because he was very fighty in Austria, but he lost it in the gravel fighting Magnussen, and he threw that away. But it was a shame.
That was an experience thing, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
his first real time of being able to push against other drivers.
Yeah, but I think it was unfortunate that was the most exciting part of the race. A crash shouldn't be the most exciting thing. And it was fortunate, obviously, that both drivers walked away because it looked really nasty. I didn't see any movement for a while, and then it cut to the camera at the front, and you saw both drivers getting out, which was a relief to see. Because I suppose you always do worry with a big crash like that.
I saw both the drivers get out, and they ended up saying, it's good to see. But the thing that gets me is neither of them really cared about each other. There's not sort of all right or anything like that. They just sort of they both get out, stand around a bit, and then they walk off. There's no interaction amongst them.
I think some of it must be a shock because you've just had this massive high speed crash. It's always nice to see the drivers walking up to each other and sort of patting each other on the back and saying, "Are you okay?"
Because there wasn't any of that. Yeah, because Giovinazzi didn't even sort of go, "Sorry for screwing up your race."
Yeah,
whether he says anything later, but
I suppose it wasn't really anyone's fault. If I was Russell, I'd be massively disappointed because my race has been ended by something beyond my control.
Yeah, from Giovinazzi though, the car just went on him. He didn't overly throttle or anything. Just mid corner, so he basically just slid off.
But yeah, Martin, what else is on the agenda? Martin is still around, right? There he is.
He is. Ta-da!
I'm here. I'm trying to manage a dog and a bad connection. My apologies. My apologies. We have got 3 minutes left of the show because we are cheapskates here at the network, so we only pay for half an hour. Italy thoughts. I know you've mentioned Italy again briefly in there, obviously with as S says, what a crash. But that wasn't Italy, obviously, it's not happened yet. We're not Mystic Megs. But what are your thoughts? I ask this every single week, but what do you want from this week's race? And I don't want the standard Bottas to push Hamilton, because that's not going to happen. I don't want the standard Hamilton not to be number one, because sadly that might also not going to happen again this year. What do you want to see outside of that? Do you want to see George Russell make the jump into a top 15 maybe? Do you want to see Gasly carry on great form? What do you want to see from this weekend?
I know what I want to see.
Go on, him.
I want to see both my drivers for my team actually start the race.
Poor Carlos. Yeah.
Talk us through what happened. I don't know the stories. What happened?
Turbo issue, weren't it? Or exhaust of some sort.
Turbo issue. I had a turbo once. Do you remember that?
Yes, we didn't believe it.
No,
it was something out of a James Bond scene. The old smoke screen. First time you ever floored it.
I told them all, right, I had this white Rover. I told them all, I've got this turbo. I've got a turbo. He looked under the bonnet, mechanic over there, said, "No, you ain't got a turbo." And I
hadn't looked under the bonnet at that point. I just, while sitting in the passenger seat, how gutless it was. I didn't believe it could ever be turboed. And then after he crashed it, and the whole front end was mangled open, it's like, oh, look, there's the turbo.
So, we all know about turbo issues, but so you want to see your two races start this weekend, Steve?
I want to see my boys finishing the points. I just want to see them challenged. No, I want to see, the first two people on the podium are guaranteed. And I want to say in what order, but we know what order it will be in as well. So I want to see a decent fight for third, like fourth, fifth. Obviously, Verstappen's going to be in there, but I want to see the racing points fight. I think AlphaTauri could do well, mainly Gasly, because the car is quick. We saw that in a straight line in Belgium. The car is good. So
I know the McLaren team are worried because Renault are good in slow corners and they're fast in a straight line. Mm-hmm. So Monza's basically a track good for them. So
I think Renault could be in with an outside shot of the podium. Daniel Ricciardo, he's such a consistent driver, and he did so well in Belgium, and he's done well this season, to be fair, in that car. You could be an outside shot, certainly for top 5 again. Maybe for a podium, because the car, like you say, great in slow corners.
I want them to get a podium because of the tattoo bet.
Oh yeah, he's challenged his boss, isn't he? If Ricciardo gets a podium this season, his boss has got to get a tattoo. I think Ricciardo's got to pick the location, hasn't he? Or one of them's got to pick the location of it, and one of them's got to pick what it is or the size.
Because he's known as the Honey Badger. I think there's a laugh about him getting a Honey Badger tattooed on his bottom.
Winnie the Pooh. That'd fit. That'd work. Winnie the Pooh would work.
He's not a Honey Badger, I'm afraid.
He's a bear. He's a honey bear. You know, he hunts for the bear. It's Winnie the Pooh on the bump. I mean, anyway, it writes itself. To be fair, from what I've seen, Latifi is a better driver than Russell. Prove me wrong.
What? Because he finishes races.
Well, that's always a good statistic to have, isn't it? Finishing races.
I mean, fair play to Latifi. He's been so consistent. You know, I mean, in Austria, the first race, I said it before, when it was all kicking off, he just sort of calmly got around, did his thing, finished last, but did his thing. Russell has had a retirement that wasn't his fault, and he's had two retirements that weren't his fault, because he was caught up in that crash, and then he retired earlier in the season with a mechanical problem on the first race. Russell is the better qualifier, and he is quicker in the race, but he just needs to keep himself out of trouble, and he needs to maybe take his time a little bit more. That move on Magnussen in Austria cost him points probably. But I'll still say Russell is a better driver than Latifi. Russell is. We saw it last year. That car, that Williams he had last year was awful, and he's getting it to places it shouldn't really have been. I mean, they were constantly starting 19th and 20th, but he almost got into Q2 a couple of times. And that car,
in Russell's defence, he's likely to score points. Latifi's nowhere near it.
But yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we saw that in Spa. Latifi he didn't have the fight. Russell was up and fighting with the people around him. Latifi just seems to drop back.
Is Russell better than Norris?
No.
Ooh. I don't want to say yes.
He could be.
I would say they're on a par because they're both really outperforming their cars. I mean, the McLaren is a lot better than the Williams. That's obvious. Russell is really outperforming his Williams, and Norris is doing very well in his McLaren, and he's beating Sainz quite convincingly. So, I would love to see those two in the same car.
Sainz did come out earlier this weekend and ended up saying that he's had a lot of car issues and things that are out of his hands. So,
I mean, yesterday
how true that is and what's going on, I don't know, but Norris is, showing him the way at this moment.
The two of them in the same car would be great. Norris and Russell, dream team at Mercedes.
Yeah, I'd take it.
Oh, for sure.
Well, Hamilton's there. Well, it's not going to happen, is it? It's just not going to happen.
Norris,
what do you drink? Huh?
Norris, Russell, and Albon are all chums. Which one do you actually think's quickest out of the three?
Russell.
Yeah, still?
Russell or Norris. Yeah,
you think Albon's the slowest out of them?
I think so. He just seems to not have the racecraft either. I mean, he's done some great moves. Yesterday was a brilliant fight back, and I think he was 6th in the end. But he was looking good for 4th at one point. But apart from that brief stint at Toro Rosso, you've only seen him in a competitive Red Bull. But he's obviously playing second fiddle to Verstappen, whereas Russell and Norris are arguably, well, Russell is, but Norris is arguably the number one at McLaren because they know Sainz is on his way out anyway.
Yeah.
So I reckon those two have got more of an equal status, maybe. But Russell is undisputed the number one at Williams. So
that's not hard, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I would be the undisputed number one at Williams if I was paired with Kubica or Latifi. So,
harsh on the Latifi.
Well, maybe Kubica, not Latifi.
No, not Latifi. Agree with S there.
I do. Yeah.
If anything drastic happens in the race, like Mercedes or Bottas thinks, sod it, I'm going to race Hamilton, and then they end up taking each other out. Verstappen will get the win. Renault podium.
Are we going to get some rain? That normally spices it up in Monza.
Yeah, because they always say, look, it's raining, and then the rain just skirts around the track every time.
Yep.
Obviously, did we? I don't know if we captured this because I was dealing with the dog trying to eat something he shouldn't be eating. But did we deal with the Bahrain track being approved? The outer circle, is it that the F1 calendar's being used? Did we touch on that? Do you want to touch on that briefly this week?
Yeah, I can just mention it briefly because there's 2 races in Bahrain. So the first one is using the normal Grand Prix circuit. The second one is using the outer layer,
that's it.
Which is 55 seconds a lap. So with estimations. So that could hurt. Well, it will really benefit Mercedes and the Mercedes powered teams. 2 out of 3 of them. I guess it's which one it won't benefit. It will benefit Renault because, as we said, they're really good in the straight line, and the only corners they're going to really be taking are slower speed. So that would benefit them, and it would really hurt Ferrari and all the Ferrari-powered teams.
Yeah.
So 55 seconds a lap is insane, and I'm quite intrigued to see it, but I can't help but get the feeling Mercedes will be lapping people 5 laps in. You'll see Latifi 3 laps down. Great.
And with Russell with a DNF.
Quite probably, yeah. Someone else would have spun and taken him out as well.
Now
Neil,
that the Ferrari engine's been made legal, it's sort of gone a little bit under the radar of how much better the Renault engine and the Honda engines are.
That's a fair point, to be fair. Yeah, I never thought of that. Because everyone's concentrating so much on, look how poor the Ferrari is now.
Yeah. But then that Renault's
really
going well
shown
in a straight line. So even though that was the joke of an engine for a long while, they've
yeah. Because Honda were a joke, and then it turned to Renault after Honda found some reliability and found some power. And now the Ferrari is, well, if you take Belgium, for example, Ferrari is probably the worst engine you can have in the back of your car right now.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would say that. In all the years I've been watching F1,
No.
to say Ferrari is the worst power you can have.
Have they
Honda is the
adjusted
second best.
Have they adjusted the game yet? Because on the F1 game, Ferrari was the best engine.
No, I did a couple of races earlier today, and Charles Leclerc is like 60 points ahead in the championship. He's won like 3 races in a row.
Oh, you
Vettel
chose
is
that
second.
one in the end, did you? Because you couldn't decide this morning. You couldn't decide.
Yeah, I chose it. Yeah, I
You
thought
chose
some
that
races done. So yeah, but he's I don't know. I never thought I'd say that Ferrari is the worst thing to have in the back of your car right now, because it's always been one of the best. You know, if you want a Formula One team, stick a Ferrari power unit in the back and you'll be fine. And obviously now it's Mercedes.
But Ferrari can't finish anywhere near where they usually do, which is the surprise for a newbie like me. You know, coming back into it or starting it, you always expect Ferrari to be at least top 5, at least.
Well, going back to the Schumacher era, you know, even a couple of years ago, 2018, Ferrari were one of the best engines, if not the best. They were leading the championship at one point. And now, since it got deemed legal, and they've said, oh, no, it's not because of that, it's because of other issues. Yeah, come on. You know, we're not that stupid. It's obvious that that's because you were doing something a bit underhand, which Ferrari are quite experienced with. And now people would say, actually, I'd rather have a Honda in the back of my car than a Ferrari. And that's unusual for Formula One.
There was another poll. There was a poll about whether Honda are going to stay in Formula One or not. And the majority of people out there have said yes to it. At this moment, I don't see why they would drop out. They're not under pressure or anything. They're doing well with Red Bull, so I can't see them leaving. They've got no real reason to.
The ideal thing for Honda, speaking as maybe as a fan, sort of looking at it through the romance of it, because I want to see it. But I think logistically, Honda, I mean, you've got 2022 coming up, obviously. If they were to go back to a full works team, obviously still supply engines to Red Bull and AlphaTauri, but keep developing their units for the next couple of years, and either make their own entrance, because there are a couple of blank spaces on the grid, because I think they're allowed up to 24 cars, and obviously they've got 20 at the minute. Get your own team, or take over an existing team. I don't know, like maybe turn AlphaTauri into a full Honda unit, which I doubt they'll do. But seeing Honda on the grid as an actual manufacturer, not just as an engine provider, would be great. You'd have obviously be a Renault, Ferrari, Mercedes, Honda. You know, back in the day, you had BMW, Toyota. You know, get more engine manufacturers on the grid. That's what's needed.
The main thing with Honda, was the fact that Honda were integrated in with a European team. And apparently there's a lot of differences between the way European teams and the Japanese work. So, and plus there's time differences as well. And it just wasn't working properly. So whether you had, like you've got Ferrari in Italy, whether Honda, you know, they have a Japanese team purely, and whether that can, you know, work better.
I think it could be good. I mean, they're getting on okay with Red Bull and AlphaTauri, but you saw how much they struggled with McLaren. But it also makes you wonder how much it was actually down to McLaren and not Honda, because they were going for this sort of size 0 packaging on their car, and the car was just cooking itself the whole time. McLaren are getting all funny with Renault, but with Honda. But since they've been with Red Bull and AlphaTauri, they've been, you know, give or take, you know, the odd race or two, they've been pretty solid. So
the thing that gets me though, McLaren had to put up with going to a pre-season where Honda, rather than improving an engine, decided, right, we're going to absolutely revolutionize and rebuild a brand spanking new one. And then the first thing it does is has an oil pickup issue.
Yeah,
and then it sounds like it's like a bag of nails. It's like, what can McLaren do about that? That is purely on Honda.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not blaming the whole thing on McLaren. I think part of it may have come down to Ron Dennis as well, and his, he was a bit of a dinosaur, but great boss, very clever man. But unfortunately, his F1 had changed and his view hadn't. I can see why McLaren went to Honda, because of, you got Mercedes, and you think, right, if we're only a Mercedes customer, we're never going to win while we're fighting the real Mercedes team. We're best off finding a manufacturer who will provide just to us. And unfortunately, it didn't work. But now they're going back to Mercedes next year.
They're on a full circle
in 2022.
There's only one engine they haven't had, and that's Ferrari.
Yeah, that's never going to
happen. They've always stood that Ferrari's their biggest rival. So
yeah,
they can never have one of the
And there we go. Right, 41 minutes. Done and dusted, gentlemen. Another good week in the books. How many more weeks of F1 are left? Or dare I ask that question?
We're going into December.
Good man. I like the answer. Going to December. I like that. Good. I was getting worried we're running out of content, but we've got plenty of stuff to get. So at what point do you think, just very quickly, do you think Hamilton will have it won? Next week?
No. Yeah, a couple of weeks. No. I think it'll be going for a few more races. Because obviously, like I said, we're going to early December. That's all the races that are confirmed, because you've got Turkey's recently added to the calendar as well, which I'm
But Verstappen needs to start winning though, doesn't he?
Well, Bottas first. I mean, Verstappen needs to. Well, I say needs to. He needs to. Or Red Bull needs to get closer to Mercedes. Easier said than done. Bottas needs to find his testes and actually put his foot in the corner.
Now. That's not any.
I'm not getting wound up.
The season will be going long enough for you to get a Santa hat on.
Well, I'm growing the beard and I'm growing the stomach, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't doing it in vain. That was all. But there we go. Done, dusted. Who wants to lead us out of today's episode with the wise words ahead of Italy?
I'll say again, it's the usual. Thank you very much to everyone who watched us and commented and left opinions and things and got involved. It's always great to see. Looking forward to Italy. I always say it every time, but hopefully this time we'll get an exciting race to comment on, and there'll be lots of things to talk about and stuff happening and cars everywhere. But we'll see in a week's time. But yeah, thanks to everyone who watched, and that's not good enough, Mike.
No, not on.
Watch it back.
Watch it back. We're off to play ping pong. We'll catch you all later.
Every single ping pong.